everybody, Jennifer Schaus here, and we are coming to you live today from Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us in our Webinar Wednesday series. 2023, we are covering the top 40 federal government contractors. The series, as I said, is every Wednesday at 12 o'clock. All of our webinars are complimentary and recorded. You can find them on our YouTube channel or on our website. It's probably easier to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll get alerts whenever the recordings are posted. If you're looking just for the PowerPoint, you can find those over on the slideshare.net site. Again, those are complimentary as well. We now have over 600 government contracting videos on our YouTube channel, so there's plenty there, everything from the FAR to strategic and tactical topics about government contracting. Okay, a little bit about us. Our services, we provide professional services for established federal government contractors. We help with contract vehicles, including everything from FedLink to GSA schedules. Other services are listed here, and we also put on some events, webinars, and conferences throughout the year. If you want more information, you can find that on our website, which is listed there at the jenniferschaus.com website. Okay. If you are selling to federal government contractors, we offer sponsorship opportunities in our webinars, sponsorships at our events. We've got a newsletter that goes out every Monday. You can place an ad in that. We can also post on LinkedIn for you about an event, your service, your product, and that will reach over 27,000 LinkedIn followers. If you want our media kit, which is where you can find all of this information, just send us an email to the hello@jenniferschaus.com website, or I'm sorry, email address. Some upcoming events and specialty webinars that we wanted to make you aware of. We've got a marketing class that we're putting on with the Virginia PTAC, soon to be called the Virginia Apex Accelerator. There's one coming up this summer in August, and then early next year in February. So I guess save the date or mark your calendar. You can actually already register for those. If you want information about GSA schedules, that will be on Thursday, June 15th and Thursday, September 14th. Those, I believe, are either at, I think, 10 a.m. I think these are all at 10 a.m. If you click on the link, it will give you the time, and I believe they're all about 2 hours. Okay, we are putting on a complimentary webinar with our friends over at MyGovWatch. It's about NAICS codes and identifying opportunities to bid. So looking at RFPs and really talking about how the government sometimes, at least 38% of the time, miscodes RFPs and solicitations. So sometimes they're assigning the wrong NAICS codes, and what you can do about that, how you can make sure that you're not missing out on opportunities and that you are receiving the opportunities that are in fact geared towards your NAICS codes. It's a complimentary webinar, it doesn't cost you anything. The registration link is there, and I believe it's also up on our website. If not, it should be soon. Okay, we've got our quarterly event coming up at the Kennedy Center. It will be Monday, July 17th. It runs for 2 hours. It's on the terrace level at the KC Cafe, and we usually have about 200 to 300 federal government contractors. As I mentioned, there are sponsorship opportunities available there. The link to register is the GovCon 0717, which is the date.eventbrite.com. Okay, and now we want to thank the sponsors for our webinars. This will take me a couple of minutes, but just keep in mind that because of our sponsors, this is why our webinars are free. Otherwise, we would pass the cost along to the attendees. So again, we want to thank our friends at GovEvents, or the premier platform for posting events related to government and government contracting. You can find all of our webinars and our events on govevents.com, as well as recordings from our past 500 webinars. We also want to thank Tom Johnson and his team at Set Aside Alert. They are the go-to publication for contracting opportunities for small, women-owned, veteran-owned, HubZone, and 8A firms. Visit Set Aside Alert for more information. The Fairfax Economic Development Authority has an online calendar of events and webinars, and we want to thank them for posting our events and webinars on their calendar. The contracting data in the webinar series is provided by GovSpend and FedMine. The GovSpend-FedMine vision is to be the leading trusted source of data, analytics, and insight for organizations buying and selling in the public sector. The FedMine Federal Solution integrates data from 18 federal data sources and sets and creates a single convenient database that places key data points at your fingertips. GovSpend began as a spending and purchase order database, specifically within the state, local, and education sector. Today, the database includes contract opportunities within thousands of entities at federal, state, local, and education organizations. With the acquisition of FedMine in 2021, the combined platform empowers federal contracting teams to make smarter decisions. Thanks to GovSpend and FedMine for providing the data in the webinar series this year, and several years actually in the past they have provided the data. Virginia PTAC. The Virginia PTAC Procurement Technical Assistance Center at George Mason University offers free one-on-one counseling to established government contracting firms in Virginia on federal, state, and local procurement topics. If you're interested in learning more, please use the links provided to explore services, review homework recommendations, register for live training, and find useful links to agencies and other self-directed learning. Online resources and group trainings are free with no restriction on business location. One-on-one counseling is limited to eligible client companies. Join us and the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce for their annual government contracting conference. Hear from expert panels on government contracting topics and network with hundreds of contractors. Use the registration link to learn more, which is novab2g.restonchamber.org, and I believe that would actually be next week on Thursday. So we hope to see you there. BidSpeed. Do you need help winning government contracts? BidSpeed helps and you win. Opportunities from every federal, state, and local public source in the United States. Need to find a teaming partner, incumbent point of contact, expiring contracts, etc. What about a compliance matrix or proposal templates? Want a solution to win with your GSA schedule? Maybe an easier, better way. If you said yes, log in at bidspeed.com. BidSpeed is an official partner of the US SBA's 7J Management and Technical Assistance Program. Get started today at bidspeed.com. The Federal Business Council, I'm sorry, hopefully I had the right screen up. Sorry, the Federal Business Council events are the ultimate engagement channel to bring government and industry together. 68% of government personnel report that they attend more than one event each year. FBC has worked with government and industry for 45 plus years to create gatherings where ideas are shared and to help government achieve its goals. This includes agency industry days, cybersecurity symposiums, tech expos, and offsite meetings. FBC provides full life cycle meeting planning and event management. With over 5,000 meetings under their belt, FBC has the experience, systems, and personnel to make your next event exceptional. Learn more at fbcinc.com. Okay, a little bit about the series and our schedule. As I mentioned, today's webinar is complimentary, as are all of our webinars. You can get the recording on our YouTube channel, and if you sign up for the alerts, which doesn't cost you anything, you'll be alerted of any time new videos are added. If you're just looking for the PowerPoint, you can find that on slideshare.net. Okay, here's where we are in the series. We've got the top 40 contractors. Today we're on number 12, so we're making some progress. The series will run through November 15th, with the exception of the week of July 4th, where we take a short break. And like I said, we are covering L3 today. We're making the assumption that most people are on the call because they are interested in being a subcontractor to L3. So we thought to make you aware of some of the subcontracting webinars that we've done, which are free. First and foremost, you want to be familiar with the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, which are the rules and the regulations that the government must abide by when procuring goods and services, and then the DFARS, because a lot of these companies that we're covering have a large presence in the defense sector. So we want to make sure that you are aware of the FAR clauses, FAR flow down clauses, and the DFARS, and any flow downs that would impact being a subcontractor. So FAR Part 44, Subcontracting Policies and Procedures, the link is there. That just takes you over to our YouTube channel. And then the DFARS for any defense work that would fall under the DFARS, including, again, any of the flow down clauses that will impact being a subcontractor. Other webinars that we've done on subcontracting, first and foremost is the first one listed here, Subcontracting with the Primes, where we covered 6 different we'll say perspectives on subcontracting. This webinar actually kicked off the series this year, so it's content is very new and fresh and relevant. Last year in 2021, we looked at subcontracting opportunities within each of the federal departments. So we have sliced the data in numerous ways. And then over the years, we've covered various strategies and tactical perspectives on subcontracting. We've got over 30 webinars there. Again, these are all complimentary, and we hope that you will take some time to listen to those. Some best practices, I'll try to get through this pretty quickly, especially if you've been following along for the previous 11 webinars that we've done. For the value prop, you just want to make sure that there is something that you do and you do it well and you're focused and you're narrow in what you are providing and not trying to be everything to everybody. Not every opportunity is going to be for you. So instead of saying that you're selling to the federal government or you're selling to Department of Defense or even Department of Health and Human Services, you want to be very specific down to the agency level, but even more specific than that, you really want to identify opportunities. So the actual RFP where you are going to add value. And value can be defined as anything from having a lower price to a specific capability or a relationship within the government at a program manager level, someone that's overseeing the operations and helping to shape the solicitation. When you were looking at partners or competitors, and sometimes those two companies can be interchangeable, you want to use every single resource that you have out there. And it's so easy these days to go to the websites that are listed here, from sam.gov to FPDS, or any of the data aggregators that you might be using, or a simple Google search to find all the information that you want to about the company before you decide to partner with them, or before you make this assumption that they are in fact a competitor. So again, we use Google, sign up for alerts for the news, find out where this company, the events that they are attending, what committees they're on in different associations. Just do your homework, and you basically want to stalk them without technically stalking them, but find as much information as possible. Your capability statement should be customized to the opportunity as well as to the partner. So take their past performance, your past performance as it relates to the RFP, and the more specific you are, the better chance you will have. It will show that you've done your homework. And if you have done your homework, then you'll either make that decision of pursuing this company or not, or pursuing the opportunity or not, that much easier. It's not that hard, it just takes a little bit of time. And again, if you're using any of the data aggregators, that will help simplify the process. But you don't necessarily need a data aggregator, they just present the data in a easier to use format than going to all of the clunky sam.gov and all the other websites out there. You also want to make sure that you register on the company's website as a small business vendor. That's the first thing they're going to ask you to do, so make sure you have already done that. Make sure you're signed up for their newsletter, that you're signed up for any events that they're attending, that maybe you're a member of some of the same associations they belong to. Reach out to their small business liaison officer, the SBLOs, again, small business liaison officer on LinkedIn, with a specific message about a specific solicitation, and have a reason, and make sure that there is something of value that you are bringing to the table. The program managers within the company can also be helpful, as their name insinuates they are in fact managing programs. So make sure you know what program you should be pursuing. Okay, and that information is not specific to L3, it's to anytime you are basically partnering or subcontracting with companies. So today's presentation, we're focusing on L3Harris. Basic information, you've got their website listed here. Stock price, just as kind of an FYI, I always find it interesting to look at 2020 and see if this company was impacted by COVID, or did they reap the rewards. Obviously, the healthcare companies were the major winners there. You can see here in 2020, their stock price dipped, but 2022, and you'll see in the data that we're going to uncover, they have blown it out of the water. 2023 looks like they are starting to rebound a little, to be determined, but they're getting back to some periods, well, actually there a little bit of fluctuation here, but not that you need to be a stock analyst or trader, but just to be cognizant of the stock price and note any major fluctuations that happened. These guys are heavy into mergers and acquisitions, so that can be perhaps the reason for some of what we're seeing here. Okay, as we mentioned, you want to register on their website as a small business, and they've got a prospective supplier form under the Contact Us tab. Not that hard to find, just make sure that everything that you put in that supplier form is comprehensive, complete, and up to date and current. You also want to make sure that everything on your own website is also complete and current before you start reaching out to these people, because they will go to your website. Okay, as we mentioned, L3 has been through quite a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So the UEI number that you can see here is what we are basing this off of. Headquartered out of Florida, incorporated in Delaware for tax purposes. And let's just go ahead and dig in here. Here it shows that they've got 15,000 plus employees. If you go to their wiki page, it's showing more like 46,000. Maybe it's just the 15,000 that are there on LinkedIn. If you're looking to connect with the SBLOs, again, these are the small business liaison officers. Some are in San Diego, some are in New York, some are in Plano, Texas. So you want to make sure that you are going after the right person who is overseeing a particular program. They're a huge company. So again, do your homework, do your due diligence before you just randomly reach out to these people. Okay, and now we're going to look at the data that our friends at WebSpend FedMine have provided. On the civilian side, you will see that Department of Transportation has some fluctuation across the years, and these are fiscal years. So we start at fiscal year 18 and FY 2023. For this column on the left is still kind of to be determined because it's the fiscal year that we're currently in. But again, DOT, Department of Transportation, has some fluctuation. State and HHS, as well as Justice in 2022, seem to have a pretty stellar year. So that is of note. Commerce and Commerce also has some fluctuation. DHS is pretty consistent across the board. And you can see them there. DHS, you know, they lost some money from 18 to 19, but the numbers aren't so erratic as they are with, let's say, some of the other agencies. If you look at the totals, 2022, fiscal year 2022 seems to be the highest revenue. We didn't go back beyond 18 just because it doesn't fit on the slide, but it is important to, I think, go back to 18 and maybe even 17 if you are serious about working with companies, because if you're just going back 3 years, that's going to take you to fiscal year 2020, which is during the pandemic. So I think the data that you would look at there would be not a complete picture because of the erratic nature of contracting during the pandemic. So again, it looked like 2022 was pretty strong, and the way it looks now for 2023, that we're pretty much halfway through the fiscal year, If that number then doubles, and again, that's not an exact, we're not going to say that whenever they've done the first 6 months, they're going to exactly double the second 6 months, but looks like they might come up close to 2022, maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But that was a nice jump from 2021. And it looks like primarily because of some work at State Department. So if you look at 2021, State Department had 13 million, and then suddenly it jumps up to 115. And 2023 looks to be on track. HHS also went from 1.4, from 26.2 in 2021 up to 96.8, so almost 100 million. Obviously, that was a decent sized jump. Treasury goes from nothing to having some dollars there on the board, and by some dollars, I mean 58 million. So there's a lot to look at from 21 to 22, again, fiscal year, because they're kind of lead Department of Transportation actually dropped in 2022. So those dollars obviously popped up elsewhere. Also, OPM went from nothing to having almost 2 million. And 2 million doesn't seem big for these guys, but all of these incremental jumps certainly attributed to the jump from the 573 to the 733 in fiscal year 21 to 2022. Okay, when we go over to the defense side, 2022 was also their biggest year, and the numbers there look great for them, particularly just looking at the totals. It kind of goes back to their 2018 numbers, but fairly consistent, more or less. There's not a big drop. If you look at 2019, 2020, and 2021, they're all relatively pretty close. 2023 looks a little dim there, simply because DoD always has delayed reporting, so we're really only seeing the first quarter there of 2023. I'm trying to read my notes here. If we look at Navy in 2020 and 2022, yeah, we see that they lost some money in 2021, but more than doubled it in 2022. Again, 2023 is not looking great, but again, that's just the first 3 months. The Air Force and Army in 2018 had some decent numbers, which then just seemed to decrease from there. Although the Air Force looks like they're posting decent numbers, as well as the Army in 2022. So there could be a little bit of a comeback there. The totals fluctuate. Again, 18 and 2022 are the best years. So perhaps 19, 20, and 21, some dollars were pulled from the services that L3 was providing over to more on the health and medical side, where they don't really play. On the independent side, still some okay numbers, and interesting to look at the totals there as well. GSA appears to be doubling. If you look at their fiscal year 18, going from 8.9 to 16.9, that's pretty much double. And then from 16.9 to 39, up to 100 million to almost 200 million. And now they're at 60 for about 6 months into the fiscal year. So just keep an eye on that. And if that is, I think, fairly noteworthy. NASA also seems to have some decent numbers with the bulk of the contracts that L3 is getting on the independent side, independent agencies, and they are already looking good for 2023. And we'll see that in some of the headlines that I've got at the conclusion of the presentation for today. Social Security, this Commodity Futures Trading Commission, go from having nothing to 20 million and 9 million, or almost 10 million respectively. So perhaps do some digging there if you believe that there is some intersection of services that you provide that intersect with the contracts that they have there. NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, looks fairly consistent. So this looks like this is perhaps a contract that is awarded in Q3 or Q4, or perhaps it is ending. Again, a little more investigation is probably needed there. Okay, if we look at the top 5 NAICS codes, the North American Industry Classification System, the bulk of the work, as you can see just by the graph, is the radio and television broadcasting. So wireless comms, computer system design, other communications, engineering. And if you followed through with us over the last 11 weeks, oftentimes you'll see that there is just one NAICS code that dominates. But here their work seems to be spread out, which is I think fairly interesting, and gives more opportunities for businesses to subcontract with them because they are semi-diverse. Okay, and this is just that chart with the actual numbers, so you can take a deeper dive here into the services that they provide and kind of see where the dollars are actually flowing. Some people like graphs, some people like the actual numbers. So, okay, now we're going to look at the contracts with a subcontracting requirement on the civilian side. And subcontracting requirements are for contracts that are valued at $750,000 or more. So let's go ahead and dig in. And these are some of the same departments that we saw on the civilian side. So commerce, transportation, and homeland security, with the actual numbers there. And they seem to be growing. So if you look at fiscal year 2021, just the totals there at the bottom, that goes from 18.9 up to 32.8, and they're already at 80. So if you're a subcontractor, bells and whistles should kind of be going off here, because there are some decent opportunities. On the defense side, numbers are kind of consistent as well for the totals. Again, keep in mind 2023 is only going to be the first 3 months that we're looking at because of the delayed reporting that's required for defense contracts. But 2021 and 2022 seem to be fairly close. There's nothing that's erratic here or any great fluctuations. And just take a look at the numbers and see where you have relationships and where do your services intersect with L3. Okay, on the independent agency side, we go from 70 down to 2, and it looks like there were just some adjustments there with NASA for $452,000. But it looks like they're back on the board then in 2023. So again, further investigation, we're just giving you high-level information so that you can then take the data and go into your own databases or the platforms that you're subscribing to, the data aggregators, and there's plenty out there. Or if you're doing it manually yourself, that's fine too. Okay, now we'll look at the, still in the subcontracting bucket, the awarded subcontracts by agency. So we see here the Air Force towers over the other departments and agencies here, and this is civilian and defense together. So again, these are all of the departments that we talked about and agencies that we talked about before. So really no surprises, but Air Force, just think of the nature of the work that L3 does. So no surprise, but 307 million is definitely shows that the bulk of the work is there with the Air Force for the subcontracts. Now, if we slice the data another way and we're looking at the actual industries, keeping in mind that, again, Air Force pretty much had the top spot there, it certainly is no surprise here that the top NAICS code is the 336413 for the other aircraft parts and auxiliary equipment. Again, towering over the next 9. And there are more than just these 10 industry codes where L3 plays. We're just for the sake of being succinct here, we just wanted to give you the top 10. But again, You can kind of take I would suggest looking at the intersection of the NAICS code and from the last slide, the Air Force, and I think you'll probably find some pieces or contracts where that data intersects. Okay, the subcontractors that they're working with, FCN, again, I wouldn't be surprised if FCN is a subcontractor for that NAICS code that we just talked about at the Air Force. Again, just based on pictures only, probably a kindergartner could figure out that piece of data just by looking at the graphs here. Some other companies obviously listed here that you may or may not be familiar with. Viasat is pretty well known, Teledyne, and others. So again, I would look at their contracts, their UEI numbers in SAM, and see where those intersections are. Here's the top 5 subcontracts reported. Then the sub-award contractor name is listed there. At the very bottom, you've got that FCN Inc. that we just saw on the last slide, and some of the other companies listed there as well, the UK company and others. So the prime contractor there is again listed as the L3 Communications, and the parent company in column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the company that we're looking at today, L3. So because they have so many subsidiaries and sister companies, just keep in mind that sometimes these subsidiaries will have similar names. Air Force gets 4 out of 5 of the rows here. So again, no surprise because Air Force was towering over the other departments when we looked at subcontracting. Okay, we're going to look at the VWACs. A couple things to talk about here. There's a TSA-3 unrestricted that has the bulk of the dollars there for 2022. The TACOM 2 has some dollars for 2020, 2022, and 2021, and the others were showing up probably because they had something in previous fiscal years. We just stopped here at 2019. But let's go through these contract vehicles. So the TSA-3 is not a TSA as we would initially think, meaning Transportation Security Administration. It's actually an Air Force contract. And then the components of that contract are listed there with the bullets, anything from program management down to testing. So again, it's a training systems acquisition contract, an IDIQ, and these are more or less contract vehicles. I just explained them as a vendor shortlist. TACOM 3 is a DHS contract vehicle with a short explanation there. OASIS contracts are overseen by GSA and Seaport E by the Navy. So just to kind of give you some background on those. So again, the TSA-3 is a U.S. Air Force contract. It is not a TSA contract, and then you've got the others here. And the reason, again, that the OASIS contracts are on there, which is overseen by GSA, is they probably had some dollars or were on that contract vehicle and didn't win any work during those fiscal years. So again, further investigation is needed for those. And now we are looking at their expiring contracts, so valued at $750 or above. So that means that these contracts had required a subcontracting component to them. The most interesting part to me is the number of transactions in relation to the total sales. So if we look at the last row and the third to the last row, only 4 transactions to break down the dollars there, as opposed to if you look at the top 2 rows, 211 transactions and 383 transactions, breaking up some big dollars there too. Obviously, you want to make sure that your NAICS codes are aligned with the ones that are listed here and that you have the right product service code as well. Okay, some conclusions. On the civilian contracts, we saw that in fiscal year 2022, They peaked primarily with Department of Transportation. Their lowest year was fiscal year 20, but DOT still basically was the major player. On the defense side, they peaked in fiscal year 18, primarily with the Army, and their lowest was not too far behind that at 780 billion, with the Navy having the highest revenues. Independent agencies, NASA, and then GSA. On the subcontractor side, FCN, which we saw in some of the graphs, came in at a towering 24.6 million, and then the next 9 subcontractors, and they have more than 10 subcontractors, again, just for the sake of convenience and being concise here in these presentations. We only are providing the top 10, but the next 9 subcontractors, as you can see here, range from the 15 to 6.9 billion. I'm sorry, that should actually be, say, million, and that I think is a good thing because it shows that there's, I think, deep competition, and their NAICS codes are also more or less spread out behind the major one, which is the 335614. I think we're missing a 5 on that. And yeah, the next biggest one is well below the 222 billion, coming in at the at 86. This is just taken from a website called merger.com, mergr.com, and just giving you some data about the mergers and acquisitions. So just keep this in mind, and you probably want to stay abreast of this. And if you're signed up for Google Alerts for L3, you're probably getting alerts often based on the mergers and acquisitions. I believe they have a newsletter. You can sign up on their website, or they have a news section. And yeah, I would say just take a minute to review this, and just know that this is their methodology for growing, divesting some of the businesses or business units that they own, as well as acquiring others. Here's some headlines that are relevant and current. One from this morning, their L3Harris to supply Navy radio terminal sets under potential $142 million contract. They're awarded millions to modernize a space development agency capabilities. That's from Satellite News, and then from Defense One. Looks like L3 is potentially trying to purchase Raytheon's Aerojet. So again, keep in mind that this information you don't need to memorize it, but it is good to have as a talking point when you are dealing with program managers and executives. If you want them to take you seriously, and you want them to be you want them to consider you as a subcontractor, then I think the more you know is the better. So educate yourself about current events happening at the company, mergers, acquisitions. Who's the CEO? Has he been there for a while? Did he come from a competitor? Did it come from within the company? Just, what's the stock price? Has it fluctuated? What's happening with the company? So again, it just takes a couple moments of your time. And again, make sure that your capability statements are tailored towards these companies, but more specifically to the opportunity that you're pursuing together. Again, we want to thank everybody for participating in the series with us. Don't forget to reach out to any of our sponsors who provide great services to government contractors. We hope to see you in a couple months on Monday, July 17th, with about 200 to 300 federal government contractors for a fun night of networking at the Kennedy Center. Registration link is there on the bottom of the screen. You can find today's recording probably within a few hours up on our YouTube channel. Just sign up for alerts, and you'll be notified. Here's where we are in the schedule. Next week is Booz Allen, and we'll conclude on November 15th with GlaxoSmithKline. The only week that we skip is 4th of July. These are all complimentary, and you can sign up on our website under the tab called Top 40. That's it. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you next week.